could you tell me who is your favorite character from Downton Abbey?
Oh, don't all say Carson, please.
So nice to meet you. It's a true honor for me to be here with you. Downton Abbey is not only a show and 2 movies. Downton Abbey is a family for the audience because we have shared so many ups and downs with your characters. I even call my dad Papa after you say it in the show. After so many years, what are you still learning from your characters?
You know, I think one of the strengths of the film and the series is the strong women and the balance of women within it. I mean, the balance between the sexes is very equal, but the power that Julian Fellowes gives quietly to a lot of women, more in the background maybe, but still strong power.
It's true. That is true. And I was especially struck by that watching the film, that it hadn't really struck me so clearly what a depiction of strength in a woman it is. The whole idea of Downton Abbey, because it is women that call the shots a lot of the time, quietly, under the radar. Mary runs the house. Violet, of course, is a very persuasive character.
Mr. Carson thinks he's in control, but Mrs.
Not
Hughes
at
is
all.
really operating him like a puppet, you know. So.
Lord Grantham thinks he's in control, but actually the place is being run by Cora and Mary, you know.
And I am in control. I ran,
Underneath it all.
I ran the, in the series, I ran the sort of hospital side of things, and I take in waifs and strays, much to their disgust often. But she's certainly sort of a mover and a shaker as far as helping people. And I think that is something that I just took for normal. But now when Elizabeth has pointed it out, of course I recognise that. And I wasn't quite as aware of it as Elizabeth was, because I just sort of thought, well, that's always been the way.
Yeah.
It's just that we haven't sung and danced about it or shouted it out. It's always been the way. And it's just that now it's being called out, and a new generation of young women are recognising that you can say it rather than just think it and do it quietly.
Yeah.
Laura and Dominic, you have this amazing opportunity of joining the Downton Abbey universe. How nervous were you on the first day of shooting?
Yeah, really nervous on the first day. I mean, it's a huge thing to step up to and to become part of. So you are kind of quaking in your boots at the prospect of being part of this world. Luckily, these guys are amazing and made us all feel really comfortable, ready just to welcome us, and we were just part of the family straight away. So that's down to you, and testament to how these guys work and the crew and how strong their roots are, because they just welcome the new people in and watch us flail around for a while and get nervous. When faced with Maggie Smith. How did you feel?
Well, I mean, my first scene was I walked into a room and there's most of the family are there, and Hugh Bonville steps forward and says, Mr. Dexter, welcome to Downton Abbey. And I went, and I had to have a few goes at it at first, because it is quite daunting, and it's sort of, you can't quite believe you're there, and that... you know, instead of sitting watching these people, you're actually having to interact with them. It's quite weird.
Your characters have the chance to travel to the south of France, and that's a different setting for the show. What was the best experience for you shooting this?
The weather?
Yeah, so great. The food, all of it. Yeah.
The 10 days of quarantine with just the cast and crew. There were some great memories, actually, probably my favourite thing.
Yeah, it's really so stunning, and as you see in the film, it is the most incredible location. Yeah, in between takes, you're hanging out by the pool. It's kind of nuts. That was our job for a bit, but we struggled through it.
We did.
Yeah.
In this movie, the first thing we see is a very important event, and everything looks beautiful. But I read that the weather was not very good that day of shooting, right? It's a miracle that it looks so good. What happened?
We had the 2 days before were glorious and beautiful, and the day after was beautiful, but the day of
Raining.
Very typical of their special moment. So it rained, and there was a very strong wind. The parasols were being blown off, and we had little moments where we got to capture whenever there was a break in the weather that we all ran out and we filmed, and then we ran back in to avoid getting wet. So it was
very much like a real wedding.
Very much like a real wedding, especially in England.
With this show, you have gone through a lot of historical moments, like the sinking of the Titanic. I remember that in the first episodes, and now it's so special, this movie, for me, because you're talking about the pure story of cinema with the evolution of silent movies to talking movies. How do you feel that you're an actor, that you live in this modern society, but you can experience those historical times through your characters?
That's always been a great touchstone in the show, these references to real events that have peppered the storyline all the way through. For instance, I remember it was very poignant, actually, at the mark of the Armistice Day at the end of the First World War, us all standing in the hall at 11 a.m. on the day of the armistice and commemorating that moment. And yes, of course, we were in whichever year it was, in the 21st century. But you couldn't help but imagine, take yourself back into the place of one's own grandparents' generation. And moments like that throughout the show, the series of, be it visiting characters like Dame Nettie Melba, the famous opera singer, coming to visit, or well, if we ever moved on to 1929, the Wall Street crash, I'm sure would have an impact. But that's always been, I've always admired the way that Julian just draws in real history into our fictional world.
And there's something naughty about having a bunch of actors who've invaded a stately home making a film called Downton Abbey, then being invaded by fictional actors making a fictional film. It's layers upon layers, and the black and white film within the film, and the characters, the servants suddenly playing aristocratic extras and getting to sit down at the table while the aristocratic family have to creep round silently behind them. It's a lovely sort of way of turning things on their heads. So it was good fun.
I also love the way it suggests that the way Hollywood shook up the whole hierarchy of the world, because in fact it created a whole new hierarchy where the power of celebrity overtook the power of the aristocracy in many ways, and the power of money and the power of storytelling. And so in the microcosm of Downton Abbey, of the house of Highclere Castle, that's exactly what they see happening, and it's creating the opportunity for a lot of fluctuation for a lot of the characters. I mean, you see that the movie star is somebody who could have been Sophie's sister working in the kitchen, but she's a great big movie star, and you see that Molesley gets an opportunity to break out from his role and become a screenwriter, and so I think that's a lot of fun to see the new world introduced in that way.
I think also the setting of the house in Highclere, the people who lived there, it was a sort of a theatrical setting. I mean, when people made an entrance and came down the staircase, it was a very, very theatrical entrance, and that is now taken over by actors, and they start to mimic that. So that's very interesting what happened.
It must have been shocking for the aristocracy to have to step aside and say hello to Tom Cruise, etc.
I love the meta thing about this Downton Abbey movie, because you have a movie within a movie, right? And you have the real crew and the fictional crew, and you have many, many cameras on set. How was that for you? And to get to know more about how the audio is important in movies nowadays, and maybe people don't realize that.
Yeah, I realized, just how enormous that transition was for the industry. And for these actors, it was a, terrifying prospect. It was a completely different medium, and something that was changing overnight, because there were already studios who were doing it, and it was becoming successful and earning more money. So it was a movement that was going to happen and was inevitable. And were these actors going to be able to keep up with the pace of which it was moving? And from my point of view, playing Myrna, the fear was palpable with her. And that meant that this character was so multi-layered. And if we meet this woman in the beginning of the film and she's potentially unlikable and leaves a bad taste in your mouth, by the end you understand why she is the way she is.
I'd love to go back to the silent era, because you were so used to the idea of acting in silence and everyone being, pin dropping, and it was great. They had pianos going, music, and the director going, okay, now walk over here and now sit down there and smile a bit and we'll lighten up. And I remember Johnny Depp always used to have apparently a thing in his ear which he'd have his DJ would be playing music to suit the scene. And of course, in those days, you didn't need the thing in your ear. You'd have a pianist playing the tune. And I think it'd be great. I want to go back to it. No learning lines. Perfect.
No learning lines, yeah.
Pure acting. Marvellous.
It was funny at times because we had Simon Curtis, who was directing the movie, and then we had Hugh Dancy, who was directing us, but also being directed by Simon Curtis. So there was this very strange, what, when, where are we going, doing what, and that, action. Cut. So it was there was a lot of laughter to be had with all of that.
Yeah.
This show has a mix, always drama and funny moments, and we know that the person that can be so funny but so serious at the same time is Maggie Smith. She's the best. And I want to ask you, what is one of your best memories with her in the show?
Oh, it's so hard to say. There's so many.
Yeah. I think we were saying she's so encouraging to young actors, and I feel like in the first series, I remember I was sat with her and Penelope, and I sort of joined in the conversation. I said, when I was at drama school, we did Hay Fever, and her face when she turned around to sort of go, and it was like she was going, go on, it's okay, join in, and I will always remember that as she really wants to help you and give you confidence, and that I feel very lucky that we experienced that.
Yeah, and just watching her work, I think it's very hard to pick out a favourite moment, but just getting to be on the same set as a woman who is just that talented and that lovely and that gracious as well was something I'll never forget.
Could you tell me who is your favorite character from Downton Abbey?
Oh, don't all say Carson, please.
I don't have a favourite. It would be so difficult to choose one because they all have they all have their individuality. You can always say the one that's not there, which is always a good thing.
Yes. Tia the dog for me.
Yes, Tia the dog.
Yes, the gardener. We never see him.
Yes, the gardener.
But he provides beautiful flowers. He's one of the great off-screen characters of the cinematic age.
Yes.
Joanne, I remember Anna lived a very, very awful and hard thing in the show. Through the evolution of your character, what's the thing that you keep thinking about that and that made you being more mature and be different towards your character from the point that it started 13 years ago and nowadays? I have to tell you, thank you for being so brave to take that part for the character.
Thank you. Well, I think any character should have, and we try and create this, an emotional involvement over any length of story. In this case, I've had the rare and incredible opportunity to sort of evolve Anna over 6 seasons of a TV show and now 2 films, which is incredibly. It's a real honour to be able to do that. And as you say, she started out in one place of a kind of young woman who is struck by a new man that comes into the house, and started very much a love story with her and Mr. Bates that stemmed from a friendship. And then as things evolved, obviously she went through a lot of trauma as a character, and I always try and build on that and think how that would affect and change somebody. And now it's so lovely actually to revisit her in the movies. And when we left Anna and Bates at the end of season 6, and she'd just given birth to baby Bates, as I like to call him, Johnny, then we left them in a place of real happiness. And I think the audience and myself were really rooting for that and really wanted that for them. So it's lovely actually to revisit her for the movies and see her in a place of contentment and happiness and living a life of joy, really, which which I feel like we've all wanted for her and Mr. Bates.
Laura, I love that you have this passion for journalism, and I was wondering if sometimes you, in the whole years of Downton Abbey, you had these like good and bad moments with your character, that you hate her or you don't understand her, and then you love her and you admire her.
I mean, I think I always loved her, even when she was being awful. I think Julian's got a real skill of making you understand where someone's coming from. So even when she was behaving really badly to Mary, say, you understood that it came from this place of pain and, you know, the loss of Patrick and feeling like she was overlooked within the family. You know, he gave you an in with her. And then she had, you know, a lot of hard times. And, you know, but for an actor, that is just a gift, really. I felt like I had some really nice stuff to play with, and yeah, he gave her this brilliant ending to the series, so that was really special.
Tuppence, I love how your character is and how you portray her, because she's so kind and she's so mature. She has to love her partner, understand his situation, but at the same time make herself heard and be seen and be loved.
Well, I think this film feels like a natural progression from the last, in that Lucy was really trying to figure out her place in the world, and I think everything clicked when she met Tom, because he was also sort of doing the same thing, or at least he had moved on from that, and he had spent many years kind of carrying the weight of guilt and responsibility. What does it mean to move between classes? And I think that Lucy very much understood that, and that's what kind of started their journey together. But I think that it's a kind of a dilemma for so many women at that time, was to juggle home and family life and work, and to have their voices heard. I think she's part of a new generation, which we see a lot more of in this film, of younger people who are trying to make a difference.
I think we're running out of time, and I want to thank you for giving us one of the best shows ever. I know it's your job, you're an actor, but you have touched so many hearts and minds for this revolutionary thing that the show has, that I don't know if sometimes you realize how important you are for people. And I want to thank you for that.
Oh, that's very
Oh,
kind.
that's very kind of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your fingernails.
So modern. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so
thank you
much.
very much.
Lovely to meet
Thank
you.
Very nice to meet you. Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks.
you
Thanks a
too.
lot.
Thank you very much.